Okay, take 3 of my interview with Dr. Melanie Barton Bragg. So, I'm going to wait for everybody to start popping in here. It's on my personal page tonight instead of my public. What's up, Mama? Hey, welcome, Bridget. Everybody's popping in here. Hey, Vonda. Get Melanie in here. We can get this show on the road. It's only almost an hour after. It's no big deal, right? You guys didn't have like any significant bedtimes. Maybe I'm not supposed to do it on there yet. You know what? Mercury's messing with me still. Let's get this party started. That's right. Woo! 3rd time's a charm. I'm ready to go. Let's get pumped up. We need some Rocky music. Andrea always has Rocky music. Shirley, what's up? Okay, we're on my personal page, guys. Hit the green button down at the bottom. All right, Melanie, let's get you in here, girl. Let's get this show on the road. Add Melanie in. Want to welcome everybody here. I'm telling you. Oh, it says it's connecting.
Yay!
Oh my goodness.
All right, I'm going to switch. I'm going to turn. I got to flip you over upside down.
Okay.
All right?
This should be interesting. Why are you upside down?
That's interesting. Yeah. I have
Melanie,
never worked so hard to get into an interview.
Girl, this is like, oh,
all right,
my goodness.
I'll just turn you this way and I'll figure it out.
I'm just happy that you're on here.
Oh, my gosh.
Woo!
I have never worked this hard.
I know, right? I'm like, I've been having a hot flash. I've been like, oh, my Lord, I'm not going to get her in here.
But I don't know if all the other people can find their way over because a lot of them don't know your page.
I know. Well, I told them it was under the same name, and I left that live up, that take 2. So if they should, this page is public as well, so anybody can see the lives. I don't know what the deal is with that, because I was able, if it was on my end, I wouldn't have been able to bring Josh in like I did. So I don't know. I'm going to look at your phone and stuff tomorrow, though.
Yeah.
And we have Bruno look at it. So
yes, absolutely. All
right, guys. So we've gotten off to a late start, but that does not mean that we're not going to cover everything that we intended to cover. Are
you hearing people talking?
Not yet, but they've already been messing with my light. Are you hearing people talk? Well, when I did the interview,
I'm hearing an echo.
Okay.
There's an echo. So let me turn on. I'm sure my phone is off, but let me make it's off.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be doing that.
Zach and I had that problem because with Zach, we were both hearing people talk like it was a party going on in our ear. You know what it sounds like. And so we had that the whole thing, and it got worse as the time went on. And I swear, I don't think it took this long to get him on, but it took quite a while. So we're letting everybody get back in here. You wouldn't show the invite, Vonda, on the business page. I don't know. I'm seeing all kinds of people right now. So I'm glad if this is working. I'm so glad that you're here. So we're on my personal page. We're doing the Journey to Wellness. This is my guest, Dr. Melanie Barton Bragg. Melanie, so glad to have you here. Let's get started, girl.
Okay. Better late than never.
That's right. Hey, we got it going. So why don't you have so many different areas that we want to touch on, we want to discuss and let people know everything about you, promote what you're doing. So I kind of like on the other page, I was telling people what you were doing, but she is a licensed social worker. She has a doctorate in pastoral counseling. She is an author of 2 books, working on her 3rd book, and we're going to talk about those books as well. She is the founder of the Dr. Melanie radio show. What else am I missing here? You have many spiritual gifts. You're a Reiki master, holistic psychotherapist. She will come to your house and cleanse your house and cleanse you, and emotional trauma, dealing with emotional trauma. I was talking about that on the other page, how it can go back past lives, generations, So we are going, I talked about the prayer wheel, how we were going to discuss angels, negative energy, demons, and you have gotten confirmation to talk about aliens from the Council of Eight that you have. So where do you want to begin? You tell me.
Well, I would like to know, of the people that are listening, how many of them are people who have had Lyme disease?
A lot of them on here, actually. Bruno's on
Okay.
here.
Okay.
We've got, let's see, Lynn has Lyme. Andrea and Vonda suspect they have Lyme. Monica does.
Okay.
Let's see. There's other people that are on here that either have, there's a lot of Lymies on here. So,
Okay. Okay. That's fine.
yeah.
The reason I ask that is having Lyme disease changes your life,
Yes.
not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally.
Yep.
And that had the ability to restart my life when it happened to me. I've had it for generations, probably through my family history, but I began to show symptoms of it in my early 20s, but wasn't diagnosed until 2010.
Wow.
So it was a long, long time, and the damage that was done to my body was enormous, and to my brain as well.
Yes.
So the reason I mentioned that is trying to overcome that, you think you're crazy.
Yes.
And then because I had all these spiritual things happen to me since I was a very young child, then people thought I was crazy.
Right.
And if people read my book, my grandmother, my mother, my daughter, my grandson, all of us are psychic.
Right.
And so that adds to, you must be crazy. So you really you're not sick.
Right.
You're sick in the head.
Right.
And so I wanted to read something that will tell people how early stuff happened to me, because the spiritual stuff happened very early on. Okay?
Yes.
So this is from my book.
Hey, Dryad. Hey, Barb. Hey, everybody joining. We finally got it to work on this
Yay,
page.
yay. So this happened to me when I was about probably 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
I said, "Mommy, Daddy, wake up. A man is bothering me." And my mom slowly opened one eye, then the other, looking up at her trembling daughter. "Marion," because that's what I named myself in the book,
Right.
"you probably just had a nightmare. Go back to bed. No one is bothering you." Sarah rolled back over. Her dad, Andy, roused and asked, "What's the matter, Pumpkin?" "Daddy, some man is trying to get me through the window," she answered, sobbing, clutching her arms around her middle. Andy got up and followed her into her room. By now the dawn light peered in through the window. Looking in the closet and under the bed, he said, tucking the covers around his frightened daughter's chin, "The bad man is gone now. Go to sleep. If he comes again, call me and I'll come in." "But, Daddy, I have to go to the bathroom and I'm scared. Will you take me?" Sarah didn't allow Andy to see the girls without clothes, so he closed his eyes and pulled back her covers as she dashed to the bathroom. He stood with the bathroom door cracked as Marion emptied her bladder. The crisis ended. Andy crawled back into bed. Sarah chided him. "You know, if you give in to her craziness, it'll get worse. She needs to learn to get over these imaginary things, or she'll be labeled off her rocker like my mom. You don't want that, do you?" So my grandmother was considered crazy. And so because that's how people saw her, if I showed any signs of having spiritual gifts, I was crazy too.
Right.
So I was taught to squelch them.
Yes.
But I couldn't entirely do that, because when I was about to go to kindergarten, I was talking to, and I'm going to read you my experience talking to Robbie. "Robbie, are you still here?" Marion asked, looking around the room. "I haven't seen you in a while." "My dear child, of course I'm here," said the 3-foot blue silvery apparition standing next to her bed on the rag rug. "You haven't seen me because you're going to school now," he said gently. "Robbie, how come you don't go to school with me so we can play like we always do?" she asked, perplexed, laying on her side facing the window. Marion, your teacher would not want me to come to school with you. She and your friends can't see me, only you can. You, she wouldn't understand you talking to me. She'd think you were strange, said her constant companion since she was an infant. Tears welling up, Marion reached out for him and asked, So you're going away? Sweetie, no, but you won't be able to see me anymore. I'll still be around, Robbie assured her. After a while, you'll forget about me, but I'll come back from time to time as you grow up, but I'll look different. Okay. It'll be okay, I promise. And then her mom comes in and says, Marion, who were you talking to just now? Was someone in your room? Sarah asked, curious, peeking her head in the doorway as she exited the bathroom. Mommy, I was just talking to the fairies playing on my rug, she said, earnestly pointing to the rug and her friend Robbie. He says he can't go to school with me. Now, Marion, you know all that is not true. You better not talk to anyone about that or they'll call you crazy like Granny Nellie. Do you understand? Sarah said with a harsh tone. But why, Mommy? Does Granny see fairies and Robbie too? Robbie says only I can see him. Okay, Marion, that's enough questions, she said, coming in and pulling back the covers. I think you can get up now. Go on in the living room and I'll let you watch a little television. Tomorrow you'll go back to school. I was sick from the time I was a baby.
Okay.
And I think because people like us who are light workers, we come into this world and we don't fit into our physical body.
Right.
And because we don't fit, we get physical illnesses that attack us. And then we have to figure out how to cope with them.
Right.
And one of the ways we cope with them is the spiritual gifts begin to develop as our way to connect with the other world.
Okay. That makes sense. So is Robbie still around now, or was that just for a brief time from like birth to five or six?
Well, what happened was, to explain all that to me, was on February 26, 1991, I had surgery. I had a bladder tack-up. And during the surgical procedure, my blood pressure went so low that I was near death.
Okay.
And during that near death, I went to the place where people go, in the in-between place when you die.
Right.
And my son that I miscarried because I was drinking too much caused a miscarriage. He met me there. In the near-death experience, he was 15, which is the age he would have been had he lived, had he gone to full term.
Okay.
He greeted me and I knew exactly who he was. I said, "Oh, Mitchell, it's you." He said, "Yeah, Mom, it's me. I've come to introduce you to some people." So he took me in a boat across the water, and it's described in the book, the process. When I get over to the other side, there is my grandmother, my best friend that died, my other relatives that died, and there are the spirits that I had seen throughout my life. You can read in the book, different ones, different times. And I said to them, "Oh, I get to stay now?" Because this was my second near-death experience. And they said, "No." And I said, "Well, then why do you bring me to this lovely place, but I can't stay?" And they said, "Because there's some things we want to show you." And I said, "Okay." So they showed me throughout my life how these different spirits that showed up were a combination of angelic kind of things, people that had died, and alien type people.
Okay.
And they showed me how that throughout my lifetime they appeared in different forms, but they were all the same.
Okay.
And they told me that there were things I needed to do. And they told me my mission was I was to go back and I was to love the people who didn't love themselves, including my mom, until they could love themselves. And that was my mission. So I said, all right, so what is it that you're going to show me? So they began to show me future scenes of things that would happen. They would help me to understand that there were certain things, missions I had to accomplish. And I didn't remember them. And they said I wouldn't when I woke back up. But they said, when those things happened, you'll remember we showed them to you. And I said, okay, what choice did I have? They wouldn't let me stay. So when I came back, I immediately was interested in healthy things. Prior to the near-death experience, I was a very fundamentalistic Baptist type Christian. When I came back, none of that mattered anymore. All of that just went away. It became holistic. It became divine and cosmic, but not Jesus and God and all the things that I had been taught in all my growing up.
Right. So more spiritual,
Oh,
more
yes. And then
universal,
they
more
began,
open.
yes. And then they began to, piece by piece, they would show me things. They showed me, it was in the fall of, it was 1993, that a spirit stood beside my bed and said, "You're going to open up a holistic practice." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm happy in the group practice I'm in. I don't need to do that." They said, "Yeah, you're going to do it. And this is what you're going to do." And I said, "Okay." Like I have a choice? Not really. So within 90 days, I had a holistic practice opened up with 2 therapists, a massage therapist, financial planner, um,
Wow.
chiropractor, nutritionist, because they told me to do it. And so I
That's
did that,
amazing.
and then they would show me from time to time the next thing and the next thing.
Okay.
But what happened along that journey is that in the marriage I was in, I was making the progress forward spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a dream one night, and in that dream, they gave me the opportunity to make a spiritual leap forward. And they said, if you make this choice, you can't ever go backward. You will be enlightened, you will be aware. And in that vision, my husband at the time was in it with me. And he said in that vision, "Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go too." Well, I made the leap and he didn't.
Okay.
So they told me to not mention it to him. Well, when I woke up, I'm looking at him wondering, did he have this dream? Because I was now awake. And he said, "What do you mean, did I have a dream?" And I said, "Okay, nothing." He says, "No, GD, you're my wife. You'll tell me what you dreamed." And so he got it out of me, and that was against what they told me to do. So my path was diverted for about the next 10 years on a very negative, downward, dark path because I didn't
Wow.
do what they told me to do. I did what he told me to do. And it went very sour from there. So I finally was able to leave that marriage in 2009. But the
Okay.
way to get out was a gift that was given to me of cancer and Lyme disease and 5 minor strokes. That was my exit, my gift out to not go back again. So,
Right. So I guess sometimes we all get different gifts,
yes,
health-wise, to get us out of
yes,
situations. That's
yes,
amazing. The book that she's reading from, so that you guys all know in case you want to go on Amazon.com and get it, and I believe it's on Kindle as well, right?
yes, it is.
It's going to be backwards when I hold it up, but it's called Quicksand, and it's Marion's Memories Married to a Sex Addict Minister. And my mom's been reading it, and has a lot of things in there. I haven't gotten very far in it, Melanie, as you know, but I plan to read it. But just from talking to you, I know of a lot of things that has happened
Mm-hmm.
to you. So so you've battled Lyme basically your whole life, but you're in
Right.
wellness now.
Not exactly. I got
No,
another tick bite on July 28th.
of this year.
Yeah,
So
two
that was
weeks ago.
after you. Oh my goodness.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I'll have to make you up some of my bug spray that I have.
Okay,
Uh, my mom
okay.
says she's
Yeah.
150 pages in.
So
Yeah,
I'm back on I'm back on medication. I'm back on holistic treatments.
that's good though, because you know how to treat it this time. So,
Yes.
you
And
know,
I sent the tick off to be tested by
oh,
Dr.
good.
Clark in Jacksonville.
There we go. See
And
right there.
he said this type has Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So,
No.
but I've already had magnet treatment to help eradicate it. So,
Okay.
we'll
Well, and
see what happens.
you've caught it. I think you've caught it early enough so that you're good. And Dr. Clark, his lab is like stellar. Like that's his specialty. So I actually
Yeah.
participated in a treat like a not a treatment. It was uh, a study basically. I would send my when I was going to a particular doctor, I would send my blood to him and let him analyze it and do
Mm-hmm.
things with it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
he does a lot of amazing work. So, but that's good. You get bit by
He
ticks, save the
tested
tick.
me. Yeah.
So,
He took my sample years ago, my blood sample,
okay.
and he said that it didn't show positive for Lyme, but it showed positive for 7 co-infections. And he said
See.
you don't get these co-infections without having Lyme.
Ah, okay. That's what people don't understand, what a complex issue this is, because just getting bit by a tick and going and they put you on doxy, that doesn't mean that you're okay, because like that tick didn't, that tick bite didn't have Lyme. It had all the co-infections. This one had Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So, but you already had Lyme. So you never have Lyme without the co-infections. So, man,
Right.
you've been through it. You've been through it.
Well, it's the attitude about it that makes the
It
difference.
is.
Rather than me saying I have Lyme,
Right.
I got bitten by a tick, Lyme entered my body, but I'm in charge of my body, not the Lyme.
That's right. And that's the attitude you have to have. That's what I keep trying to tell people. It's mind, mind, body, heart, soul, mind, body, heart, spirit, however you want to say it. But your mind is 80 to 90% of it. And if your mind is in the game 150%, 500%, however much you want, you will. You've got to change. Your words have so much power, and your thinking has so much power. And all of that just turns and turns and turns. And so, see, so in my mind, when you said it, I already felt like it was defeated.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm not
I think
letting
you're
it
good.
in.
Right. Stopping at
Yeah.
the door. So where do we've heard some excerpts from your book. I know a lot of people that are tuning in are very interested in your abilities. In you want to talk. You want to start off talking about the Council of Eight. Do you want to go there first?
Sure.
All right, let's go
Sure.
there.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Okay.
explain to everyone.
Okay. In April of 2016, it was about a year and a half after my second husband died. And I was laying in bed, sound asleep, and I got awakened by 2 beings, which look familiar to me because they've been in my life a long time.
Right.
And they were 7-foot Arcturian and a 3.5 to 4-foot gray.
Okay.
And they said to me that they were there to help heal my body. And then they put me back in a deep sleep and they worked on my body. And they've done this for years, so it wasn't anything new. Well, I decided that I wanted to research to find out who had other experiences like me. So I
Mm-hmm.
found the MUFON organization, which is the Mutual Organization of UFOs.
Right.
And so I contacted them, and they got me in touch with 2 people in Florida who are part of the organization to do an interview with me and to be able to help me figure out what I want to do. So as a result of that, I was invited to be a therapist, because I am a therapist, to
Right.
people who've had similar experiences.
Okay.
So I decided to go to the MUFON symposium. They had that August in 2016. And at that symposium, I met a man. His name is
Uh-oh.
Kevin Briggs.
Okay.
He is a retired policeman from England. And he said to me, I would like to talk to you. And I said, okay. So in talking to me, he let me know that he had been in contact with these 8 different beings who are part of a galactic council, intergalactic council, and they wanted him to get a message out. And he thought, I'm going to be crazy. People will look at me and laugh because they'll say that, you're a retired policeman. This is not very credible.
Right.
So we talked about it at length. And then he said, what do you think? And I said, well, why don't you explore it and see what the message is, see what they want you to do. So as a result of that, he was sitting in a friend of mine's living room, and he began to talk about information about physics, about geometry, stuff he knew nothing about. So the other person and I looked at each other and we said, he doesn't know he's channeling. And he said, what? And we said, you're channeling. So as a result of that encounter, then he got the message that he was to invite certain people to be on an earthly council to work with the intergalactic council. And so there were 4 of us. Kevin's one, I'm one, and I can't reveal the others. If they want to, they can.
Right.
So we began meeting on a monthly basis and recording what we were doing to document our research. So some of the things that would happen is these 8 different beings would give us messages. And many times when we were meeting, in the first or second meeting where we agreed to meet, my phone got fried. And when I took it to a repair place, they said, "What did you do to your phone?" I said, "I didn't do anything to my phone." "Well, we've never seen anything like this.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
fried." And I said, "Okay, well, I don't know. I have no idea. Can you fix it?" And so they did. And so I learned after that to keep my phone out in the car and not take it in. But what they would do is they told us that we had to raise our individual consciousness, that we had to raise the consciousness between us, and then in doing that, we were going to raise the consciousness of the planet, and then eventually this Council of 8 would reveal themselves to the world. So
Okay.
that's what we've been working on since 2016.
So tell me this, because this is kind of my thinking, and I was talking to Mom about it as well. Do you think that like everyone is being conditioned right now to accept this? You know how it's more mainstream now to see alien beings on commercials and on television and advertisements and movies and all kinds of things. Do you think that we're being conditioned right now so that when they appear, that everyone's not so freaked out by it? I mean, I'm sure some people will still be freaked out by it, but do you think that that is true?
2 answers to that. One of the answers is that some of the people who are on this earthly council with me feel like the government is intentionally gradually releasing things to get people accustomed to it, because the government's known for years. They've had contact with them for years. It's nothing new to them.
Right.
They just don't want the hysteria and they don't want to lose the power.
Okay.
According to the council members, they're saying that when the reveal comes, some people will be okay with it and be at a higher vibration, which is what we are, the earthly council, learning to do, to
Right.
connect consciously with the council and beings above them. And that we're going to go through this time that's going to be tumultuous, but we'll go through okay. But those who are at the lower vibrations, they'll just see doom and gloom, and they'll see everything negative, and it'll be horrible, and they won't even be aware of anything going on.
Okay. So is that more of like is there like going to be like a war going on, or is there's my light?
There are forces that don't want the reveal,
Okay.
that want the power. They don't want it to be positive, they want it to be negative. And
Okay.
these are benevolent beings
Right.
who represent many species, and they're trying to help us save the planet that we're doing ourselves in. That's partly why we're sick,
Right.
because Lyme disease is a biowarfare
Yes, it is.
that was created, and the researcher was brought over from Germany. It's named after him, the Lyme
Exactly.
disease bacteria.
You can say it. I've talked
So
about it on here a lot.
yeah, okay, yeah.
So, yeah, good old
Yeah.
Willie.
So those of us who are working to try to heal the planet are of a same echelon, same vibration.
Right.
But the things that are going on in the world, they don't affect us the same way it does people who are only at the lower vibration and only see all the political things, all the climatic things. Well, we're trying to rise above that.
Right.
We're trying to get in touch with our true higher self,
Yes.
and that we will rise above whatever happens. And some people will say, well, is that the apocalypse? Well, I don't know. I don't know that anybody has the direct information as to when that, and if that's really going to happen if it's going to happen the way we think it is. I don't know.
Exactly. That's
All
what
I
I
know
think.
is I'm doing the part that I've been instructed to do.
Right. So would you say that like a lot of us that have raised ourselves to a higher vibration and we're because you can be aware of all of that stuff going on and it can concern you, but it's almost like it's I don't know, it's not like it's in the forefront of your mind. It's like you have other things that you're focusing on, other I don't know, more, I don't want to say more important things, but it kind of is, because having your vibration higher and knowing you have a huge purpose to fulfill, that kind of sets you apart from others, which also helps you understand why you don't fit in with
Yeah.
people.
Right.
Do you
Right.
do you think that, let me ask you this, do you think that being, and we can tell people too on how to start learning to raise your vibration level, but do you think that when you have suffered a near death experience, because you've had two, I call it 2015 the year of death because I had one big one, but I had several small ones. So do you think that when you've encountered a near death experience that it, do you, I have a couple of things. Do you think that your soul leaves and comes back during that illness and during that time, because there's like periods of time that are missing from the past when you were really sick?
Mhm.
Um, do you think that the near death changes you and raising your vibrational level, that like helps you raise your vibrational level more? The sickness, the near death, all of that?
For me personally, and maybe not everybody's this way, but when I had the near death experience, I went to a different dimension.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I didn't fit.
Yes.
I just, I couldn't explain it, but nothing mattered the same way. It
Right.
was like I was back in the same body, but I was not the same soul.
Yes.
It
That's
was
how I feel.
different.
I can relate to that as well. But I I don't have, like, it seems like each time I'm able to raise my vibrational level is I feel less connected to
Hmm.
everything going on around me. There's like that light keeps going off. It's freaky. Um, but not in a non-caring or arrogant kind of way. It's just a different, it's just like you, I don't know, it's your accepting of everything and everyone. You don't pass any judgment, and you can just choose to whether you engage your energy with people or you don't.
Yeah.
So how, as someone that's interested in learning how to raise their vibrational level, I know I've talked about it on here. Why don't you give your way that you
Hmm.
help?
Okay. There's a couple things that I do. One is that when the person's in my office, I do a meditation with them to connect them with their higher self.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they connect with their higher self, and then I encourage them, I make a recording of it, and I encourage them to listen on a regular basis and then to start journaling so that
Okay.
they can answer their own questions by their higher self
Right.
connecting with them and telling them the answers.
Okay.
So that's one way. Another way is I do what's called a MAP session. It's called the Medical Assistance Program. It's going to be upside down, but
It's
that's the
okay.
book.
Okay.
And you have 4 parts that you invite into that session. First is, it's called the Diva of Healing. So it's the energy related to healing.
Okay.
And then you invite in all the energy of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Then you invite in the people that are the experts, the spiritual experts out there in the universe or beyond.
Okay.
And then you invite in your higher self.
Okay.
So we have a session, it's about an hour long, and we call on specifically the helpers we need for whatever the problem is. And so once we've done that, then the person at the end of that session is given intuitively a code word so that they can go back and open. It's called a coning session. They can go
Yes.
back and open the coning session
Okay.
and get answers from the higher self and from these beings. So that's what I have them do to start raising up their vibrational level.
Okay. So it's not hard to do, but it does take some
No.
determination, some courage, strength, and patience. It takes a lot of patience to do
Right.
it. So, but everyone's able to do it if they're willing and open to it.
Well, before I do it with them, I have to make sure there aren't any negative attachments
That's
attached to
true.
them.
Yes, that's true. Well, and for an example, I know what she's talking about because when she came to my home, my mom's home a couple weeks ago. What was it? 2 or 3 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you said I had an energy attached to me, from a previous relationship. And then there was that negative energy was in my room, and then it was in another room in the house where my kids stay. So it was me attached to me. So tell people why that happens, how it happens, and then how you are able to get rid of them. Because I found this really, really
Okay.
amazing.
Okay. When we're sick, our body is at a lower vibration. Our organs are not functioning properly. We're not breathing right. And when that happens, negative thoughts come in. You get depressed.
Yes.
And when you get depressed, you're not thinking on good spiritual things. You're thinking about, oh, I ache, I hurt, I'm sad, I don't want to live. And that's an invitation for that negative stuff to come in.
Okay.
So when you're sick and you're down and depressed and stressed, it's an open door.
Right.
So when they come in, they can show themselves in the way of making your sickness worse, showing up in bad dreams. They can affect you so that you have stomach aches, back aches, headaches, all kinds of things. So the way that I discern if something's going on is I use muscle testing, kinesiology. And if I find that there is something, there's a process that I go through spiritually to ask it, you know, were you once a living human being? Are you negative? Are you positive? Are you of the light? Are you the dark? If you're of the dark, have you always been of the dark? If you're of the dark, but you weren't always of the dark, did somebody make you have to fulfill some kind of a promise or karmic debt? And figure all that out. And then in the end, I tell them, if you want to go to the light, I direct them to the light. If they don't want to go to the light, then I exorcise them out of that person's body, out of their house, and they're gone forever. They can't ever return to anybody, anything. They're gone.
Right. So in my case,
and then I go through and yes.
Right. Well, with my case, there was an energy from past relationship that was attached to me, which I was with that person when I was sick with Lyme. So when I didn't know I had it. So, but that person also was a narcissist. And so that type of energy, you want to explain how that works? Okay.
Okay. A narcissistic person, most of the time, the ones that I've dealt with in therapy, they come from a very dysfunctional background as a child.
Yes.
And their being narcissistic is a way for them to try to get their needs met.
Right.
And because they didn't get what they needed, they learned to take care of numero uno, themselves.
Right.
And in doing that, they're putting negative things on other people and they're not taking responsibility for it. And it's kind of like a monster that grows.
Right.
They just, the more they do it, the more they want, the more they need, the less they're compassionate or empathetic for anybody else or any other need but their own.
So do they?
And you can't ever.
No, go ahead.
You can't ever completely meet their need because they don't love themselves.
Right.
So no matter what you do, it's never enough.
Exactly. So if someone has that type of personality and they actually are attracting negative energies to them because of their lower vibration and how they don't love themselves and all of that. So that's how that happens. Now, when your vibration is lowered, either due to illness or because this person has pulled you down by controlling, by verbal abuse, by other abuse, then you are open then to all of these negative energies, either from them or other sources. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to explain to people because I mean, I know we know what we're talking about, but everyone watching, a lot of them, they know, but they may not know in depth. So we want to educate. So
what I teach people is to plant their feet like a redwood tree, the roots deep in the ground when you wake up in the morning. Yes. You put on an invisible raincoat that's your God protection. And that when anybody comes to you that's negative, you just think positive thoughts. Yes. And you don't engage because you'll never win.
Exactly. And you'll get to the point where when you're in your protective, I always say I put like God's light around me and I cover me, fill me, all of that. But when I encounter negative energy now, I actually feel sick to my stomach or I'll get a headache, which, I mean, and it's intense. And when I get away from that, then it goes away. Now, when you were here and you cleansed everything, I was completely exhausted afterwards for like, I don't know, probably until this last weekend. Like, I just was like, I was wiped out. So that's a normal occurrence then, right?
Yes. 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 Because what's happened is you've had this weight on you for so long that you didn't see. You knew something was wrong, but you didn't know what it was.
Right.
And it's like the day after you are overcoming the flu. The
Yes.
germ is gone, but your body's weak.
Right.
And so you have to do things to build you back up. It's
And
like you had a baby.
Yes. Yes.
But what you produced was an evil attachment,
An
and it's
evil
gone.
baby.
But you're weak afterwards.
Oh, we're getting some comments on here. Lori is saying, listen to what we've been talking about. We have to do something on me to get this parasite off of me. She says she's under attack. So connect with Melanie. She's on Facebook. And where else can people find you, Melanie?
They can contact me at drmelaniebarton@gmail.com.
Okay.
Or you can call me for an appointment if you need to. And that number, you can put it up later, but it's 850-445-4272. Okay. And it's in Tallahassee, so it's Eastern time.
And if you're in the Florida area, she does travel around to certain areas in Florida. She will come see you and do house cleansing of yourself, all of that. But there's...
And other methods as well I'll come and do depending on what it is, what they need. And
you muscle test to see what the person's needing. And it's not always just a one session thing either with, people think it's just a one-time thing. You do sometimes need multiple sessions depending on what's going on.
Okay, they asked us to repeat the phone number again.
Yes.
It's 850-445-4272.
I have it on my paper here. I wrote it down and I have it right here on my paper. Oh, okay. So the thing I wanted to
But don't call me tonight.
Right? No, because like she's tired and she's got to drive to Orlando tomorrow. So
yes. Yes.
So I will tell you this: when you came and you released all that, and I was working on myself. It was like I was reliving a lot of things that had happened that I already thought that I had dealt with, but I had to relive them. And so that's what I was doing after you left for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've been so exhausted. My sleep was all messed up. It was crazy. Now I'm getting back to where I was, and I feel better. I do feel lighter, and my head feels clearer. So she is legit. Good. I will say that she's legit, and you guys know I don't lie. So we've got Mom. Put your phone number up. So contact her if you like an appointment. Because she's really good at what she does. Now, my question to you is, how do you protect yourself from these? Because I've encountered negative energies when I've done readings, when I've done cases, when I've done different things. How do you? Because I have my own method. How do you protect yourself when you release them, and they won't go into the light?
Well, what I do is I wear a cross necklace. I do blessed oil on me, and I pray. And I pray before I begin the process, and I say, this is God's process. I'm just the conduit.
Right.
So, God, you work through me. And then I pray when I'm done, and I muscle test to see if anything has attached to me. And if it does, I say, all right, God, remove it. And I have my Council of 8 is constantly protecting me.
Nice. Nice. Cindy is saying she's been with you since 2012, and you're the real deal. Yes, she is the real deal. Lori says thank you. Vonda would like to know more about the teaching to spot ministers with sex addiction. Now, this is really an interesting topic, because you and I have had a good conversation about this, Melanie, because I had encountered some things. So, and this goes into your book that you're writing now. So, to help people.
Yes.
So go ahead.
All right. The book is a lay person. It's a layperson's guide to be able to discern, detect, prevent, predict a minister who has a sex addiction or is a predator.
Yes.
And I'm getting a big echo, so I'm going to wait for it to stop.
Okay. Are we not supposed to talk about this?
Oh, yes, we are.
Yes.
So it used to be 37% of ministers of all denominations had a problem with pornography.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's 55% have a problem with it on a weekly basis, a temptation.
Mm-hmm. And why is that? I know why, but I want you to say it.
Well, part of it has to do with they are always on computers.
Mm-hmm.
And they are isolated usually from their families,
Right.
because they're busy doing sermons or visiting sick people or counseling people. So they're in a vulnerable position.
Your head's cut off. There you go. Once you in there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And people who are spiritual often are people that also have dysfunctionality in their
Right.
background.
So typically if they're raised in the church as well, or how does that work?
Many churches are closed environments so that there's no outside influence. So everything is handled within the church.
Okay.
So that if the minister does something wrong, the elders handle it.
Right.
So that there's no outside influence telling them this is wrong or it needs to go to the authorities.
Right. My mom's asking, she's like, will these points help with recognizing any predator, not just in the church, but any predator or addict?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Yes, it can apply to anything.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. Because there's so many of them out there. Now, why do you think, besides their dysfunctional background, possibly, could it be, Jariah said, I was a surprise guest on his porch last night. All things for a reason. Yes, I met this wonderful man last night through Bruno. Like with Bruno, you never know where you're going to go. It's an adventure. I'm just telling you. And so I met Jariah, and he was so awesome. And he had this huge crystal. I had Bruno take a picture of me with it, and it was amazing. But I made a new friend. So, and he's tuning in tonight, and he loves all this. He loves all this stuff. So.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
But within the church, with someone that is a minister or pastor, and they have a pornography or a sex addiction issue, is this because like you're in the church, you're taught that sex is bad and that you're not supposed to do that sort of thing, and you know, or wait till marriage for sex? Like a lot of these things are drilled into your heads. I mean, when I was growing up, it was just society in general, but in the church, like all that stuff is very frowned upon. It makes it that much more, like when you're young, it makes it that much more as a temptation or whatever. Wasn't for me, but like for most people, you know, I'm trying to pinpoint where the addiction kind of starts and why it happens and why they can't get it under control.
Okay. Well, it starts often when they're teenagers in their home that they grow up in.
Okay.
There's dysfunction and they're solitary. They don't get along with their family, so they're separate. And then they begin to masturbate and they get pleasure from that.
Okay.
Of course.
Right.
And then they isolate. And so the more arguing and dysfunction that goes on, the more they resort to what makes them feel good.
Right.
And so the more they do that, the more secretive it is, and the less likely they're able to be with a real person.
Right.
So it becomes a habit that then it can affect them in all areas of their life.
Okay.
And many ministers go into the ministry trying to fix the dysfunction in their family by helping others.
Right.
But they haven't worked on themselves.
Exactly. And that's the key, is that people cannot help other people until they have helped themselves and they're right within themselves, because otherwise,
right,
it's just a storm you don't want to get into. So just make sure whoever's helping you is in a good place themselves to be able to help you. And a lot of times, like with this kind of thing, you don't know. So that's what your book's about, is like, so what are some of the signs that someone would be putting off? Maybe they wouldn't know that they're putting off, but it would be a red flag for people.
Okay, some of the red flags would be, because not just pornography, but it can be they're a sexual predator as well.
Right.
So things like they select a certain, if it's a man, they select a particular woman in the congregation, begin spending time with her.
Okay.
They counsel people, but they don't let anybody know they're doing that. They don't keep a schedule so you know what they're doing.
Okay.
There may be charges for hotels and places that don't fit where a minister should be. They might be seen going into an adult bookstore, something like that.
Right.
It may be that they are not where they're supposed to be at a certain time, or they won't tell you what they're doing. They refuse to be accountable to somebody.
Right.
It could be that they're doing things that would indicate they have some other kind of addiction, like you call them up at night and they're under the influence of alcohol,
right.
And that shouldn't be your pastor, not when they're...
Right. Or other, not just alcohol, there could be some drugs involved. There could be other things going on. Now let's clarify here, because I know there'll be some people watching and saying, well, I watch porn. Does that make me a sex addict? So let's, because you and I discussed this the other day.
No.
So let's talk about that. We know no, but why?
Well, by the time children are 11, they've been exposed to pornography, either seen it or read it.
Right.
By the time teenagers are 18, 90% have been exposed to pornography.
Right.
So it's not the looking at it, it's what you do when you look at it.
Exactly.
It's how often you look at it, and it's how often it affects you not wanting to be with a real life person because of it. Or you look at it and you got to look at something harder next time. Yes. Or you want to go try it out in real life, and so you keep expanding a little bit further. So then it's a problem.
It is kind of like a drug addiction or alcohol addiction, because you always, once you get that satisfaction, then you're like, you got to go a little further. And that goes into other sexual things like swinging and orgies and all of that stuff, which I don't judge anyone like that. You know, if that's your thing, that's what you want to do. But like, there is a reason behind people that want to do that. So is it really something from their childhood or their teenage years, or is it something that can be, I don't know, maybe it is something repressed, but maybe it's something that they discover in their adulthood and they're trying to figure that out. How do you explain that?
Well, there are people that discover it, they're late bloomers, and they discover it in adulthood, or they're up late one night because they can't sleep and they find it. Right. And then it's, okay, well, it's tantalizing, and so I'm going to look at it the next night, or I'm going to make myself stay up, and then it becomes, for some, more than a habit, addictive. Okay. And they can't stop even though they want to and try to.
And so someone that is in the church or is just a regular person, an addiction with porn is watching porn and pleasuring yourself more than like 3 or 4 times a day, and not wanting to engage in like sex with another person, correct?
Well, it doesn't have to be 3 or 4 times a day.
Well, or more.
To be addictive.
I mean, it
could be less than that.
Okay.
It's the behavior.
Okay.
It's what the mindset is. And if it's a compulsion that I have to do this rather than I want to do this.
Okay. So what's the difference between that? Between compulsion, why do they have the compulsion, and then wanting to do it? What's the difference with that?
Okay. They're studying that. They haven't studied it very much yet.
Okay.
To try to see if it's the same part of the brain that's happening with other kinds of addictions.
Exactly.
So I've got that listed in the book that they need to study it further.
Yes. And I wanted you to say that because we had talked about that. Mom says secretive behaviors. Most have an addictive personality and they have many addictions. So they have more than one, but there's always like a main one. And then, so if they have a main one and that one, they exhaust all their resources from that, is that when they branch out into other addictions?
They can cross addict if they can't have access to the addiction that's their main one.
Okay. Okay. So your book is going to be very, very interesting. So what is the difference between people that are watching and wanting to know this, which I think I know, but I'm going to ask anyway. What's the difference between someone that is a sex addict and a predator?
Okay. A predator seeks people out
Okay.
to use as an object for their own self-gratification.
Okay.
It's calculated, it's groomed, it's planned,
Okay.
and they have no care about what it does to the other person.
Okay.
They can be a predator and an addict, or you can be just an addict.
Okay.
The addict might be that it's something you repetitively do, masturbation, or you watch the pornography, but you don't go try to find a real live person to act it out on.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. So it's a whole other world that a lot of us are single now, and there's a lot of, I don't judge, but there's a lot of crazy that goes on out there. And I don't know. I don't know, Melanie. What do you think?
Well, what I tell every single person is you need to do a background check on anybody that you're going to date.
Yes. Yes. I agree. Even like, I don't know, any more background checks on everyone. That's my thing. There's crazy everywhere. It's not just with the opposite sex, but it's same sex too. So, all right.
So raise your vibration.
Yes. Oh, I'm good. I'm just like, I'm talking to you like I don't know, you know.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. It's like I told you, it's weird where I come into contact with people, I just know whether to stay back or to allow them in. Most of the time I stay back and I watch and I observe. So Vonda says that she dated a serial rapist and serial killer. Oh my gosh, Vonda. Wow. That's Vonda, that was over 30 years ago, she said. That's very scary. So Vonda, did you know that was
Very
going
scary.
on? How did you find out? I know we'll have to wait a minute for her comments to pop in, but that's we might be talking to Vonda. You never know. She doesn't. I had said earlier that Vonda thought she had Lyme, but she doesn't have Lyme. She's got other things, medical things going on. But I didn't know that about Vonda. That's a very wow. What kind of a serial rapist and serial killer? What kind of person is that? Like dysfunctional wise in the brain, in the mind? Is that like a chemical imbalance? Is that something that they're born that way? How does that?
That's one of the things I talk about in my book is their damage to the brain.
Okay.
And they haven't studied it enough yet for us to know.
Okay. Okay. So like we're like alcohol addiction, like they know that can be genetic, that can be passed down. So there has to be something that happens either during pregnancy or the development of the brain, something misfire. I don't know. Maybe something cellular. Who knows? I'm really, all that stuff really, really intrigues me. My mom says a sociopath. So Vonda says she didn't know until years later she suspected that something was off. So why don't, Dr. Melanie, why don't you tell us, like, if people are in relationships, whether they're, a romantic relationship or family or whatever, what are some red flags of people? Because I've been talking to them a lot about narcissists and other types of behavior. What are some, maybe like some top 5 red flags that would make bells and whistles go off in their head that, oh my gosh, this could be happening?
Well, one of the things would be if they only talk about themselves and they have no compassion for anything that happens to you,
Yes.
then that's an indicator that they are only one directional.
Yes.
And then if they talk about growing up, how they like to watch animals die or they set fires to buildings, that's an indicator.
Yes.
If they mention that, oh yeah, the police were called on me, I don't know what happened, but my girlfriend, she just got mad at me, and
Yeah.
and if they talk about stuff like that,
Right.
they have no clue, they have no responsibility,
Right.
those are red flags.
Right. Because they're not taking I always say the narcissist is never the villain. They're always a victim or a hero. One of those two scenarios. So they're never the one. Somehow, Melanie, you're watching. It just popped up. Melanie Barton Bragg is watching. Someone's on your phone.
Yes. And there's a huge echo, like everything I say, 10 seconds later, it's all repeated.
Oh, that is crazy. I'm not having that happen. Did you?
Yeah, it's happened the whole time.
It's happened the whole time? Oh.
That's why I pause sometimes when I'm talking, because the echo is so loud.
Oh my gosh. I am so sorry. I wish that has to be very annoying.
Yes.
Well, Vonda says that her ex took her to the lake one weekend and told her that she didn't have to take anything with her. And I wouldn't be going to the lake. He mentioned that no one knew where I was, and he told his daughter, I told him my daughter knew where I was and who I was with. So Vonda, I think that maybe you're lucky. You know what? I'm hearing stuff now. It's not myself. It's not you. It's somebody else talking. There's several people. I'm hearing it now too. This happened with Zach and I. No one else could hear, but we were hearing conversations going on. There's a woman talking. Do you hear?
Yes.
It's very high pitched. Very high pitched. So Vonda says she knew something was going on. So Vonda, how did you get out of that, I wonder? That right there, like, that makes you want to stay single the rest of your life. Just have a little dog and be good. But how would that be with attracting someone like that? Would that be her vibrational level is lower, so she's attracting that kind of energy to her?
It could be. It could be that he was looking for her as a target because he wanted to have her as a challenge to overcome whatever he saw that as a hurdle.
Okay. So anytime anybody's labeled a serial killer or a serial rapist, like how do those type of people, where they can do killing sprees or rapes for many years and not be caught, and then all of a sudden it's like they want it. Yeah. They want to be caught, and they do things, leave clues
sometimes.
But how does that go, where they can go for so long, for years, and not do anything, and then all of a sudden have like a rampage? How does that work?
Well, sometimes there's a trigger. If they were in jail for a number of years, they couldn't act on it. They might have been in jail for another reason.
Right.
And then they get out. Or it could be that they were able to control it for a long time, and then a parent dies or they lose their job.
Okay.
And something triggers it to return.
So a trigger. And so that's like with people like with PTSD. So let's talk about that for just a second, because PTSD, when people have it, it can be from something from like birth to 3 years old where something can trigger it, or there can be some other event in your life but you're kind of predisposed to PTSD, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Well, it depends on the basic things that you get when you're little. You're supposed to have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the food, shelter, clothing, safety and security, a sense of belonging, love and esteem of others, then you get to be all you're supposed to be, self-actualize.
Okay.
But if you're missing those building blocks, it sets you up to always have holes in your development.
Okay. So people that have PTSD, you really don't recover from it. You learn to notice your triggers before or as they're occurring so that you react less or don't react at all. You're able to you're just able to control it better. Is that true?
It's like, if you think of it, somebody having had cancer, they've recovered, but they're different. They'll never go back to what they were before the PTSD.
Right. Okay. And there's many different types of PTSD that can occur. So it can be from either an abusive relationship, or it can be from like your childhood where with your parents, it was either abuse from one of the parents or having like a narcissist as a parent or controlling parent. There's many different facets that can happen, and the PTSD could occur later in your life by some other event, but it's really triggered going back to what set it up. Correct?
Well, it can be a building block. You could have one event happen and it wasn't a big deal.
Okay.
You could have two events happen and 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. So by the time the next thing happens, it could be a small, minute thing, but it throws it all over the edge.
Okay. My mom says, in her opinion, most people have some form of PTSD. So how do you explain that?
Well, you think of our world.
Right.
There is stress every minute of every day. The news is giving negative stuff all day long.
Right.
If you watch that or you deal with people that are negative, it's going to do things to your body chemistry, to the chemicals in your brain, so that it lessens your ability to function as you normally should.
Right. Lori says she was diagnosed with PTSD after the death of her 12-and-a-half-year-old daughter. Lori, I'm sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
That would, I don't know. I can just say right here, if something ever happened to one of my kids, I don't know that I would recover. I really don't, because I'm sure, as they say, God only gives you what you can handle, but that's something I just don't think I could handle. I don't think I could recover from. So that's a lot. Sending prayers and thoughts to you, Lori, because that's a lot. I don't even know where to begin with that. But you could help someone like that.
And my niece is on this call, and it's happened with her son. He died in 2015. So if you're still there, Elena.
Wow.
Yes, I have.
Lori says she doesn't think you ever recover. I don't think that you would either.
You don't.
It's
you
just
don't
like
recover. It's different.
It's different. And it's kind of like with grief of any kind, it kind of just gets woven into your everyday life and you learn to go on, but it's still there. It's still a part of you. So yeah. Vonda says
it is
that the guy, her ex, got off on his charges for rape most of the time because he was a chemist and made companies millions, all oil related. Now that's scary. That right there is about part of our society that is scary. Because when someone is up there, either money-wise or like that, where they're working with oil companies, they're protected. So.
Scary.
Bridget is saying she's curious about repressed traumatic events as a child. That's PTSD. So that's what are you curious about, Bridget? Type it in. Let us know. So where else do we want to go in this interview, Melanie? Where else are we gonna go?
Well, with Bridget, the way that you know if you've got repressed PTSD is by the symptoms, by the behavior. There might be periods of your life you don't remember. There might be things that you watch on TV, like a movie, and it triggers you and you start crying, but you don't know why.
Right.
So if she were to see a therapist, if it were me, I would assess, let's look at your history. Let's see how you dealt with things. Let's see where there's gaps and see if we can figure out what's going on.
Right. Right. Jariah says that his mom was never the same after his younger brother died. He says the light just never touched her eyes, and I could imagine that. So my mom's saying most of the time when you're very young, you repress because you can't face the event. Repression is a defense mechanism. That's true too. So when you repress things, let's talk about that. If you've repressed something that was too traumatic for you to deal with at the time, either because you didn't understand it or you couldn't deal with it, then is it something like that where, like with the movie you're watching and something triggers it, or maybe something, I don't know, something happens to someone you know, or something triggers it? How would you know what it was? Like, say someone was sexually abused when they were a child.
You may not know. And so oftentimes people will come to see me, maybe they're in their late 20s, and then they all of a sudden start having anxiety and they don't know why.
Right.
So we go back and we look, and chances are their child is the age that they were when something happened to them.
Okay.
So I can recognize by the symptoms, and then I look at, okay, that's where this stemmed from, and let's deal with that and go back and heal it.
Yeah, I'm probably going to get some flack for mentioning this, but I don't care. I watched that documentary about Michael Jackson and those two guys that they had that happen to them, where they had repressed it, and then when they had boys, they had babies, and their boys got to a certain age, it was triggered. So, did you watch that documentary? What was it, Finding Neverland?
I have not.
You should watch that, Melanie. It was very chilling and disturbing, because Oprah did an interview after with the two gentlemen and some other people, and the audience was full of people that had been sexually abused. And she had made a good point where she said that Michael Jackson had groomed the world because of, with the being a predator. So if you haven't watched that, it was on HBO, but if you haven't watched that, you really should, and have an open mind, no judgment about who it is about or whatever. Just go into it watching it as if it was someone else. And it's very eye-opening. Really is. So are you able to see the comments?
Yes, I can see it, but then it goes away.
Okay. Well, Bridget said thank you. And then my mom was replying to Bridget and said, at a young age, you're not psychologically mature enough to deal with it. That's with a lot of things. Divorce, abuse, just a lot of different things can happen to you. So, where else do we want to go with this? We haven't talked about angels or demons or negative energy, and those you can't have light without dark. So
right.
let's talk about that, because I've seen both.
Okay.
So, and I know you have too.
When I was in high school, a junior in high school, my sister was getting married, and she was going away for the weekend to meet with her fiance. And my mom and sister were going, and I stayed home.
Okay.
And I had been at church, and I brought home my Sunday school paper. And in the Sunday school paper, it was talking about a missionary family in the Congo or something, and that there had been spirits. And it scared me so bad while I was looking at this that I went and I put it downstairs in our trash barrel.
Okay.
And I came back up in the house, and I got ready for bed, and I went into my closet, and there was the paper on the floor of my closet.
Whoa.
That I had put in the trash barrel. And I felt the spirit in the house, and I got so petrified I couldn't move. I was stuck for hours. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything. And so I knew then not how to get rid of the evil. I later learned how to, and then in October of 1969, which was about a year later, a spirit stood at the end of my bed. It woke me up at 3:00 in the morning, and it said,
classic time.
"You are to go to Rochester, New York." And I said, I don't want to go to Rochester, New York. If you read my book, you'll see why. Because there was a man there that I was having a relationship with, and he was married, and I didn't want to go there. And the Spirit said, you're going to go there. And I said, okay. And within 48 hours, I was in Rochester, New York, living in New York.
Oh my goodness.
So I find out when I had the near-death experience that this was one of those spirits that was directing my path.
Okay. So you had to go there in order to complete a lesson. So a lot of times
Yes.
when we make choices, there's always consequences, whether it's good or bad. But a lot of times, even when it turns out that you're like, that was a horrible decision that I made, but you learned a lot when you went through it. So as long as you don't repeat it, then you finish that lesson and you can continue to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you and I know all this stuff. I'm just saying it for everyone watching.
Right.
Right. All right. So we've got, Cindy wants to hear about angels. And then we have Vonda saying that she also wants to know Melanie's opinion on DID, which is formerly called multiple personality disorder. So,
okay. So what does Cindy want to know about angels?
I think maybe
I have angels around me. I talk to angels.
Yes. I have seen them a couple of times. During the times that I have seen the angels my son has seen them when he was young. He was very sick when he was a child, and he would talk about this green lady that was around. But he said that she looked like me. Okay, and so I'm assuming blonde hair, or but she was green. And then, but she had wings as well, because I had an angel nightlight in the hallway, and he pointed and said that's what she looked like. That she was geen. He couldn't say his words very well, but she was geen. So, but going through my divorce, and my mom had said she'd been praying for me, and telling the angels to come and God to watch over me. I actually felt one wrap its wings around me during a really, really hard time. And so, and I find feathers. I found one the other day in a parking lot. So tell us, I'm talking, but you talk about some things ways that that angels are around. And then we'll get to Vonda's dissociative personality disorder.
Okay. The way Cindy was asking about how do they interact. And one of the ways is feathers. One of the ways is that I feel the wings around me.
Right.
Sometimes I'll hear music that's letting me know it's heavenly music.
Yes.
Sometimes I will feel their presence. I don't see them, but they will just tell me, I'll hear it in my ear. I'm here.
Right.
Or we're with you. You're not alone. Sometimes it's reading a scripture passage and it will just jump out at me. It's them speaking to me.
Right.
Sometimes I will smell something that lets me know they're there. So it's just a variety of things. Everybody's different.
Right. And that's how you, when you're open to things, and when I tell everyone to be open, if you're praying about something or trying to manifest something, which we'll get into the prayer wheel here in a minute after we answer some of these, when you got to be open to the signs that you're receiving. So with the angels can be giving you signs from all different directions. The universe can. What kind of smells do you get?
It's almost like a rose water smell.
Okay.
Or a lily of the valley.
Okay.
Because where I grew up, we lived near a cemetery, and there was a lot of lily of the valley there.
Yes.
And that's what I would smell.
Okay. Now I'll have the Asiatic lily smell with my grandmother around, because she knows, she used to come around and she'd be cigarette smoke, and I'm like, I can't handle the smoke. So she always loved those lilies, in the the funeral displays. So I'll smell her that way. But I get smells for death. I know when death is coming, because I either will smell, and this is really weird, I'll smell brownies baking sometimes, or I'll smell actual dirt, from the ground. I I know my mom smells
Mm-hmm.
roses. And I swear we'll hear about someone passing every time. So, yeah, my
Yeah.
mom, roses and cookies. So, Jariah has
Mm-hmm.
his roomie is a mental health counselor, and he's been asking him questions every so often. He says it's a living encyclopedia. So, Cindy wants to know, that's how the angels interact with you, and I see feathers, and I get other signs as well. So I guess you have to learn what your signs are to
Yeah.
know that they're around. So you got to be
And
open.
Vonda was saying she smelled a burning smell.
Yes.
The burning smell, it depends on what the burning smell is. Is it a
Yes.
sweet smell? Is it sage? Or is it negative?
Yes. Yeah. Because negative energies have like a funky odor. They have a
Musty.
yes. Yes.
Musty smell.
Musty. So, and it's fun. I don't like musty, so it's like funky. But
No. No. When I smell the musty, I know there's a spirit and it needs to go.
Yes. All right. So let's see here. Did we didn't talk about the multiple personality disorder, did we? Fire is very final. Maybe that's why. That's true. It's definitely negative. Did we talk about I can't remember. We've been talking about so many different things. I can't remember what we talked about. Did we answer Vonda's question about your opinion on multiple personality?
We haven't answered that question.
Okay.
When I have worked with 3 multiple personality people in my career, and each of them had trauma as a young child,
Okay.
sexual abuse, physical abuse,
Okay.
neglect. And they developed distinct ways, defense mechanisms to be able to cope with that. So they became, in one instance, a 12-year-old male.
Okay.
In another instance, she was a 3-year-old girl. And so that was her way to cope with it. And when she came to me, sometimes she dressed differently. She would talk differently. And so I began to recognize we have to get the 2 or 3 parts to talk to each other. So there's usually a core personality. I have to get the cooperation of the core to say, could you please let the others know when I'm talking to one so they can hear me?
Right.
And then once they could do that, I could meld them together and deal with the trauma.
Okay.
In another case, it was a hybrid, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but it was made deliberately to be a multiple personality person.
Wow.
So that's for another interview.
Definitely. Melanie, we could talk for hours, girl. You know that.
We will tomorrow night.
I know, I'm excited. Melanie's spending the night tomorrow night with my mom and I, so we're having her as a house guest, and I'm excited. I'm excited. You're probably gonna be like, I wish I wasn't staying here because she won't be quiet. We're gonna have a slumber party, Melanie. So Vonda says she knew the answer. She just wanted your opinion on it. Which, I mean, most of us.
So is my opinion close to her answer?
Yes, try. We'll see. Vonda, was her opinion, or was her answer close to your opinion? We'll see in a minute. It always takes them a second. So, like, why don't we talk about, like, the prayer wheel? Because that's
okay.
What I'm thinking your prayer wheel is, because it's like manifesting. It's like bringing things together. I've written what I call a Mary Poppins letter, because in the movie, the children wrote what kind of nanny they wanted. Mary Poppins came and all of that. So I call my letter a Mary Poppins letter. And so it's everything that, and I wrote it back in 2016, and it's everything that I want to happen, or I manifest to happen. And things are starting to, because there was a whole process that needed to happen before things could start going where they're supposed to. So is that kind of the same thing, where you write the prayer wheel? Is that kind of the same thing as writing like an angel letter or Mary Poppins letter kind of thing?
Not entirely.
Okay.
The prayer wheel has 6 components.
Okay.
It's got the spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, social, and financial.
Okay.
And any aspect of your life isn't in balance, it will throw off everything else.
Okay.
So what we do is a visualization process where we write a goal for each of those categories, and then we sit down and picture as if it were already done. And then we put a date that we want it done by.
Okay.
So what you're doing is it's the law of attraction in reverse. You're saying it's already happened.
Right.
And so what do I need to do to get out of the way so it can come to pass?
Okay. Perfect. So maybe the reason why my letter hasn't totally occurred yet, and some things are still in the future, is because I didn't put a time frame on when I wanted things to happen. I just asked for them to come. And so they're just out there swirling around.
And that it won't come. There's no definite.
I gotta redo
it hears you, but it doesn't answer because you didn't give a definite.
See, I learned something new tonight. So I was on the right path with my letter. I just didn't make this happen now. Now I have done this before where I have said, like when I was at my wit's end with Bart and I couldn't take it anymore, I said, lead me in 24 hours where I need to go, how I'm going to get help, because I can't do this anymore. And I don't want to be here anymore if this is how I have to live, because I was literally going out of my mind. I was suicidal. It was driving me insane. And literally, I'm telling you, in less than 12 hours, I heard from this doctor, this naturopath, who she ended up helping me for a little bit. I spoke at her conference. Like it was bam, right there. So I do believe when you do put a time frame on things, it does come to you. I just didn't know I was supposed to do it with my letter.
Well, that's why you talk to me.
Exactly. My mom says that most psychiatrists don't believe in multiple personality disorders. Is that accurate?
It's accurate because they haven't seen it. It's rare.
Or they don't believe it when they do see it. Because Mom and I were watching a show. It was on not too long ago. And I got to be honest, I didn't know whether to believe the woman or not. Because for one, it was on TV and I wasn't experiencing it firsthand. But supposedly, I forget how many personalities she had. But it was like they were coming out. Like they were coming out for them to be able to film her and all of these different things. And she had a small child. So I'm like, how does a person operate with all of these different personalities, especially if they're a child? The personality is a young age child themselves and they have children. How does that work?
Well, the children adapt, because what happens is I've had children who their parents were multiple personality, and they just learned, okay, mommy's not herself today. She's wearing other clothing. She's not home, or she's Sheila today instead of mommy. And they just learn to adapt.
Wow. Now, what does that do to the kids? The older they get.
It really messes up the kid.
Right? Okay. So, yeah, that's a whole nother puzzle with mixed match pieces. So, I mean, so how does the multiple personalities, like, how does that even start?
It starts when there's an event. Let's say that maybe the child is sexually molested at the age of 3 and there's no language to explain it.
Okay.
Or there's nobody there to support them.
Okay.
And so they go in their room and they get in a fetal position and start rocking. And,
okay.
And maybe somewhere in the deep recesses of their mind says, we're going to grow up. We're not going to have this ever happen to us again. And so they start thinking about, what would a 12-year-old do? And they don't know because they're not 12.
Right.
But sometimes when the abuse continues, they will go to that place in their mind while it's happening, so that it's almost like the soul leaves the body.
Right.
So that they can cope with it.
Exactly. So there are, like Zach talked about this with me. We didn't get into it with his interview. He wants to get into it another time, but I want to know because I briefly touched on it earlier in the interview about soul. I got low battery, 20% there. At soul replacement, and then where another soul actually comes in during some kind of traumatic event, or your soul leaves for a while, goes around and gets educated, and then comes back. So that happens. I feel that happened when I was really sick, because that's why I don't remember. Things are like flashes,
Yes.
pictures. So
I had a person that I worked with that she had an event where she quit breathing. And while she quit breathing, another personality came in. She'd never had that happen before. And so I had to work with her to detach the other person and bring her back.
wow. You've really done some amazing work with people. I
Well,
mean, you could write many, many books.
yes.
So is your radio show, are you going to start that back up again? When's that going to happen?
With Bruno's help, I have, you're on there, Bruno, right?
I think he is.
With Bruno's help, I will be starting my YouTube channel, and there will be all kinds of things on there.
Nice. Nice. That's exciting to hear, because that'll be fun to watch and listen to. So everybody look out for that. You do have a YouTube channel now though, right? Do you have like your old stuff on there?
I have my website. I don't have a YouTube channel that's up yet.
Okay. Well, what else? Was there anything else that we left out of the Council of Eight that you were supposed to talk about? Like when you meditated, what were you told to talk about during this interview? Have we touched on everything?
I can talk about Shiva. Shiva is spelled Sheeva.
Okay.
It's not the India Shiva god. I asked her if she is on the same level as angels. She said no.
Okay.
She's at the 9th dimension, and she is a healer.
Okay.
And you can ask her to come and help your body heal. So what she does for me is she takes me on a craft through a viscous liquid, and I go into a healing chamber. It's like a cocoon, like a tube.
Okay.
When she puts me in the tube, then there's laser beams that will go through the tube, and you don't have claustrophobia. You can breathe in it and it's fine. And then usually she puts me in a deep sleep, and then I go to sleep and I wake up and I feel better.
Wow. That's amazing. Now, how many dimensions are there?
I don't know how many they are, but I know the dimension we're in is the 3rd.
Okay.
And the council is in the 5th, except for Ra, who is not the India god or African god, but he is the watcher over the council.
Okay.
And he's in the 9th, and Shiva's in the 9th.
Okay. That's very, very interesting. Very interesting. So I don't know, Melanie. I mean, there's so many things that I have in my brain that I want to talk about that that's infinite.
Well, I have a suggestion.
Yes. Go ahead.
My suggestion is that we wrap it up for tonight and set a time to pick some other topics that people want to talk about.
That's a good idea.
And have me come back on and we'll talk about them.
All right. And we'll do it on this page because this page
yes,
seems to like
your mom asked if the 9th is the higher one. Yes.
Yes. So obviously if they go up, there's multiple. Now, when you talk and you talked about in your near-death experience, how you were in a boat and you went across water. There was water behind me in my near-death experience, but I didn't go there. And there was a light where there was souls crossing over across the water. But I was given a choice of whether to stay or come back. So, I mean, our stories are kind of similar with our near-death, but they're different. So it always seems like there's kind of like there's a basis to everyone's. Some people don't get to do as much in theirs as we have, but they're all significant. So let's do that. We're going to set up a date for Melanie to come back, maybe like in October. I've got openings in October. Can I have you come back on then?
Okay.
And then you all submit questions that you want us to talk about in her next interview. In the meantime, if you would like to get with Melanie to have her help you with anything, whether it's emotional healing, cleansing, all the many things that she does with therapy, then the number that we gave you earlier, and I'll go back and post it in the top part for your number, because I do believe I have your website up there, or your email. I can't remember which one I put. But you contact her and you can set up an appointment with her. Now, if they live out of state, you're still able to help people out of state or around the world, right?
It depends on what time zone they're in and what they're asking for.
Okay.
But yes, they can talk to me and we'll figure out if it can be done.
All right.
Good night, Cindy.
Good night, Cindy. So, and Jiraiya says, all gods are one God. All goddesses are one goddess. There's one initiator. And I believe that as well. I believe that. Well, Melanie, I want to thank you so much for being on here, for being my guest. It's been a pleasure. I know we had 50 minutes of trying to get connected, but girl, we got it. We finally got it. And I'll be happy to have you back on in October. We'll talk about that tomorrow when I see you. We'll set a date for that. And I look forward to our slumber party tomorrow. Okay. So get some rest.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. So that was Dr. Melanie Barton Bragg, that was a really interesting, amazing interview. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Vonda, I think you're correct. And I hope you guys all enjoy this. You share it out. Remember to share out this video because I'm having a drawing at the end of the month. So everybody that shares, your name's going to go into a drawing and then you're going to get a surprise. So thanks, everybody. Next week, I believe I have a live next week. I don't know. I'm kind of tired right now, so I'll inform you about that later. But I do know I have Thursday night lives coming up this month and all through October. So now I'm going to book Melanie in October as well. So everybody have a good night. Get some sleep. I'm excited, so I don't know that I'll be able to go to sleep. But talk to y'all later. Thanks for being patient. Love you guys.